Hi, I'm Dave Ingebretson, and LeRoy Hyatt and I would like to welcome you to another edition of Fly Tying, the Angler's Art. Tonight we're going to tie a dry fly, a streamer, and a wet fly, and we're going to start out, the dry fly is going to be the Clark's No Hackle Caddis. We're going to tie up a Peacock Matuka, and we're going to finish up with a wet fly that's
52 Buick.
the 52 Buick, yeah.
All
So
right.
tell us about that Clark's Caddis
Clark's
again.
No Hackle Caddis fly. I'll use a tan 8/0 tying thread. I'm going to take two different colors of poly. I'm going to take an orange and I'm going to take a tan. I'm going to comb them together to make a little different coloration. And then the overwing will be the natural elk hair. Now I have a size 12 standard dry fly hook that I'll pinch the barb on. Like to always get in, I don't think I have a hook in my, or a fly in my box that has
I
the
haven't tied a
hackle
fly
on it.
without squeezing the barb for years.
No, it's just too easy to do, and find yourself fishing someplace where it's no
Where it's
barb.
required, and also to get them out of my ears and my friends'
Yeah,
ears and the
well,
sweaters.
okay.
And
Now I'm not going to dress out whole hook shank. This fly has absolutely no body on it whatsoever. It's all tied at the front. Now what I've done is I have two strands, one strand of the orange, one strand of the tan poly, and I'm just combing them out. I'm just running them together. What that's going to do is give a real different colored variation, and you
Well,
can do this
yeah.
with whatever color.
that's a nice, a new technique for most of us, I think.
Oh, okay. I didn't know if anybody had ever seen that before. I watched Lee Clark tie this fly several years ago.
Oh, yeah?
When
I
the
don't know
fly
him.
first came out.
Don't know
Nice
him.
fly, nice fly. Now I'll get rid of that back there. I'm going to take this will become the underwing, and I'm just going to tie it on. And bind it down right there in the middle. Then how long do you want it? Well, I want it extending out a little. That might be too long, but we'll go ahead and cut it off there and see what happens.
Well, that's an interesting way to blend those colors.
Oh, it really is. It makes a nice, and there's so many different color combinations that you could do
Oh,
with it.
sure.
Now I'll take a little bit of the elk hair for the overwing, and you can see why he's calling it a no hackle caddis. It's going to look just exactly like a caddis
Without the hackle,
without
I'll
the
bet.
hackle and with no body material.
Well, it's a simple thing.
Oh, but you know what? Then this body, extended body, if you will, it really has a tendency to move. It works and kicks in the current. Cinch it down, let it flare a little.
So it's going to have a head like an elk hair caddis.
Identical. Stand it upright. I'll wrap in front of it. Now I can trim that a little shorter if need be.
And like, as we've said before with other caddis, look at how the naturals are acting and fish this the same way. Make it go dead drift a little bit, twitch it, let it come down and hit that curl, the V around the rock, and just as it goes down the slot, give it a little twitch, maybe
And there
just
it
an inch or
is.
two, and experiment a bit, but watch the naturals, how they act.
But this is such a neat little caddis.
Well, it's so easy to tie.
And there's no material on it
Yeah.
whatsoever. But you can see how that extended body is going to just be
Well,
working.
now, when you say extended body, you're talking about that first underwing?
Well, yes, and maybe it is just a wing. I kind of call it a body
Yeah,
that's sticking out. It is really a wing, yes.
Yeah.
But
And you know, if it bothers you, you could put a body on under there.
could,
Just
but
wrap it up
unnecessary,
body. No.
sure. But there's a Clark's no hackle caddis. Didn't take hardly any time at all to tie that. We could be out fishing by.
That's right. You
Put a
could have
little
even
dauber.
tied me one.
Could have tied you one, you can tie your own. Okay, there's a Clark's no hackle caddis. Took a orange and a tan polypropylene, combed it out, blended the two colors together, put an overwing of elk hair on it, and that's the entire fly.
Now we're going to tie a Peacock Matuka, a Matuka style streamer. And I know, LeRoy, you and I have different feelings. I really like Matukas and I like tying them, but it took a lot of work to get the techniques down where you don't like to tie them. But you're going to be brave and tie us a Peacock Matuka right now. And why don't you tell us what you're going to use?
Okay. We'll use a red 6/0 tying thread. This is a fluorescent red. It'll have a tag of oval gold tinsel. It will also have a rib of the oval gold binding down the Matuka feather, where the fly gets its name, the peacock body. We have a grizzly dyed olive, which will become the Matuka feathers. Then it has a throat of the red saddle hackle. I have a 4X long, size 6, hook in the vise, and I'll dress it just like we always do
Now,
with
as I
everything
recall,
else.
originally the Matuka was a specific pattern. I believe it started in New Zealand, and it was tied with feathers from a Matuka stork. And
Oh,
that's
that
where the
could
name
be.
came from.
Okay.
And it was tied in this downwing, bound down style. And since that time, it's become a style of tying where you bind the wing down in that manner.
Yeah, that's all I've ever heard.
Yeah,
It's just
but
the
that's
style
where I
of
think
it.
that's where it came from.
Oh. Now I have the rib tied in. It's just a small oval gold. I don't mean the rib, I mean the tag. And I'll take 3 or 4 wraps around that just to give it a little sparkle out the
And I
back
think
there.
we've said it before, but it's important when you use the same material for a tag and a rib, make sure you bind them down. Don't expect to continue the tag on as the rib,
Yeah,
because it will come loose. But
a lot
this
of times
way,
it will.
when you bind it down, then start tying in a new rib. Yeah, or tie it so it's stopped anyway.
Now I'll take the peacock. And this is fairly long fly. Well, I've about run out of on that one. I'll grab some on this one. So I'm going to take several strands of
Well,
it.
and being a streamer, it can have a little fatter body too.
Again, I'll stroke them up, clip the tips, get rid of the butt sections, and tie it in. Now I'm going to come back and tie my rib on again. I occasionally can get by with leaving that rib on.
Yeah, you
But
can
I can
fold it
also
back and tie it down as long as it's
Get
tied
out of
down.
trouble with it too.
So there's a tying down between the tag and the rib. I often just fold it back and don't use, use the same piece without cutting, but make sure it's tied down.
Bound down good, yes. All right, give a good twist on those peacock and just run to the front.
And here again is another occasion you can rotate your vise.
Could definitely rotate it.
Especially on a long fly like that.
Yeah. Get all that bound down. Get rid of those. And now I've taken 2 of those feathers off of that dyed grizzly. I've matched them up so that it's dull side to dull side. And what I've also done is stripped off, if I can get them to stand upright, is stripped off the underside of one of that's going to lay against the hook. Now you can see there's no hackle there whatsoever.
Right.
I'm going to lay it on top.
And you can vary the character of the fly a little bit. I often tie 4 feathers in, 2 on
Sure.
the side, just to make it a little more opaque. This will be a little more translucent. Either way is fine.
Now I have that bound down. Now what I'm going to do is lay that over and just kind of stroke
there you
those
go.
fibers
Yeah.
to the rear, or to the front, I'm sorry, away from where I'm tying. Now here comes the rib. Now I'm pulling on that feather. I'll take a good bind down with that right there. Spiral forward.
Now what I like to do is spiral forward, but then make sure when I cross through the feather and across the hook, I'm coming through at right angles to the hook. That helps keep me from binding things
Yes.
down.
Well, I'm zigzagging as I'm going
that's fine,
through,
but
and
see,
it's
you're
letting
coming
me.
through at right angles, and that's
Yes.
good. That's great.
And about 1 more in there, and I think I'm all through.
I think so.
Now, I did not trim those hackle stems off, just in case I were to get in trouble. I could maybe adjust them with
Yeah.
that.
But see, now you stroke that, and if you do have any feathers tied down, you can
You
stroke
can
them
grab
up,
them
and
now
stroke them out,
and
dress
get
that.
them out of
That's
the way.
perfect. You don't have any,
No, it
but you
came
can
out pretty
slide
good
it
that
towards
way.
the back. That's beautiful. Now, the advantage, I think, of a Matuka style is that so often in a long feathered streamer, in the process of casting, the feathers can get twisted around the hook. But when you bind them down this way, that's not going to happen. And you're going to keep that minnow shape. And so that's why I really like a Matuka.
Yeah, I should probably play with them more than I do, but I just...
Well, and of course, if you don't fish streamers a lot,
no, and I really
it
don't.
doesn't come up.
Now I'm going to turn my vise over and tie just a little red beard in there. Just kind of gives it a little window dressing, really, is all it does.
Well, maybe represents a gill or something.
Could. I've never seen a Matuka tied that way.
Yeah.
And then I have one more piece of Matuka to put in. Now, do you tie this in by the tip or do you tie it in by the butt?
I'm not sure what you're tying in.
When I tie in that collar.
Oh, well, I don't usually tie in a collar. I finished, mine's done right now.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah.
Well, this one calls for a collar in the front. I'll go ahead and tie it
You
down
kind
by
of
the
threw me
butt.
there because I normally don't
sorry.
put it in. But, of course, that just calls on the pattern.
Mm-hmm.
But I tie these for bass a lot, smallmouth, and one little trick that I came up with is almost all Matukas are tied this way with the concave sides together, so you have a flat fish. I've started tying Matukas oftentimes with the convex sides together, so the tail flares.
Oh.
Now you still get the solid back, but the tail is flared, and you get that kicking action when you twitch
and
the
you'd
fly.
rivet the same way.
Rivet exactly the same. The only difference is that the flies are tied out. In fact, in one of the previous shows, we've tied one called my Chickatuka, using the chickaboo.
Well, that'd give
fibers.
a lot different motion.
Oh, it gives a
totally
different motion, a different action, a different look, a different motion, and a different action. That's good. But you can see the different appearance the fly would have.
It really would. I kind of like that collar on there,
I do
that
too.
front section.
And that little red peeking through, it looks good.
And I don't believe I've ever seen one tied with red thread before.
No.
But I kind of like that.
Again, with the little red underneath to the gills or whatever, I think it looks pretty good. Now, see, what we're doing is we're trying to find new things. Oftentimes, we've picked out patterns that specific pattern we haven't ever tied before.
No.
But we've liked the looks of it, and in the process of lining up new shows, we're trying to bring you new things, and so...
but it really does have the appearance, a good appearance of a...
I've fished a lot of Matukas, but not that specific pattern. Well, LeRoy, that looks good.
It does. It really does look pretty good.
Yeah.
Well, there's a Peacock Matuka. It's tied with peacock herl for the body, ribbed with gold tinsel, has a gold oval tag. It's tied with dyed grizzly, dyed olive grizzly, has a little throat of the red saddle, and then it has a front collar of the same olive dyed grizzly.
Well, now we're going to tie a wet fly with the interesting name of 52 Buick.
Well, this fly came out of Canada. I don't know where it got its name, but it's been a very, very effective fly for me. Of course, I've had to vary the pattern some. The original pattern called for green seal. We don't find very many green seals in this area. Not roadkill seals, no. All right, I'm going to use a 8/0 black tying thread. Now, I have varied this pattern also. I'm going to take the golden pheasant crest. I will use that for the tail and the throat. I just like the color of it, the way it shines. It works very well.
So maybe we ought to call this the 49 Ford. There isn't much of the original left.
Yeah, okay. It'll be ribbed with oval gold. You could also rib it with silver. This is a blend of an olive dubbing that we've mixed up, and the head will be peacock herl. Now I have a standard dry fly hook, or a wet fly hook in the vise. It's a 2X long. And I'll dress that thread on the hook, just like we always do. Now, if I had a complete golden pheasant skin, rather than take this crest, you can also use those side flank feathers off of that skin, which will also work very well.
But the crest has got a nice little curve
Crest
to
has-
it.
it does.
And it sparkles, and I like crest.
But I pull those fibers off. The curve is not going to have anything to do with it when I'm
Yeah,
done with it.
Yeah.
But it does give a really nice coloration to it.
And it's got so much sparkle to it.
This one's wanting to hang on to the stem and not let me pull it off.
Mm-hmm.
All right, there's a few fibers for the tail. And I don't care how even they are. I'm not going to tie it. It's not going to be very long anyway. Tie it in, cinch it down, and there's the tail. Get it all bound down nice. Now I'll take a little piece of this ribbing, and you don't need very much of it.
That's a little different. You know, a lot of people would tie that whole feather in. But when you just stripped off a few fibers for the tail, and that's important. to
Yeah,
notice.
for
Yeah.
this one, that's
Oh, yeah.
that's what I
No, I
did
think
with
that's-
it. Yeah.
That's good.
And then we'll tie in the dubbing. Now I have my thread about halfway up the hook, but I'm going to run it to the back before I get started.
And did you say that was a blend?
It's a
Colors?
blend, just an olive. It has a little bit of sparkle in it, has a little bit of brown in it. It's just
I'm
stuff
a big
that I
fan of
played
blended
with.
dubbing rather
Mhm.
than a single color.
Mhm. Well,
Mainly
most of
because
the
what it does
insects
when
out
it's
there,
wet.
you
Yeah.
find are that way.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Now I'm going to lift that rib. Well, I may be going to lift it. Take a wrap behind it, and then come forward. Right to the thorax area. Now I'm going to reverse wrap this ribbing.
Oh, it stands out so nice.
Oh, it
that
does.
way, yeah.
And there it's all bound down.
I think I'm seeing why it's called a 52 Buick.
Why is that?
Well, just all the sparkle and the shine
Oh,
and tail fins
okay.
and
Yeah, all right.
chrome and gold. And
Well, the way this one's doing, I'm just going to tie that whole feather in as a beard. And it'll stay right there on the bottom. I'll clip that off. And then we'll just have a little peacock curl here again. We've used an awful lot of peacock curl on this series of shows.
you know, we really have, but I guess
But
that
it's-
points out the fact that it's a very useful and useful material, and it's got a lot going for it. And a lot of patterns
really
use it.
does, yes. And I'll wrap that hurl again around the thread.
So this fly doesn't really have a wing.
Does not.
So it's really more of a nymph, I guess, than a wet
Mhm.
fly.
Canada, they troll them a lot behind boats,
Mm-hmm.
and I've never trolled it that way. I don't have a boat, but I do a lot with it out of a kick boat.
Well, you control it, you know,
Mhm.
with a kick boat very
Mhm.
slowly, and that's pretty common. But
There's a 52 Buick.
what were your materials again?
Had a golden pheasant crest, tail, and beard. Had a green blend dubbing as a gold rib and a peacock head.
Well, we've got a bonus fly tonight. We're going to tie a fourth fly. It's going to be a tiny fly. We haven't been tying many midges,
many.
but this fly is called Holt's Midge. It's extremely easy to tie. You can see the complicated materials that Leroy's got laid out. Tell us about all those great materials you're going to use.
Well, I'll use an 8/0 black tying thread. I have some gray tying thread, of which it's also an 8/0, but I'm going to double it to make the rib, and then the head will again be the peacock curl. I have a size 18. They tell me in the pattern book you can tie that all the way down to a 22,
Oh, yeah.
which I'm sure you could. And I'll dress that
And you
hook
could
shank.
tie it in longer sizes,
Could.
bigger sizes, and
Sure.
even on a long shanked hook, 16 long, depending on the midges you're trying to imitate.
Now what I've done with this 8/0 thread, just to make that rib stand out a little more, I've doubled that thread. I will twist it then
I
as
was
I
going to ask
tie
if
it
you were going
on.
to twist it or just tie
Yeah,
it
no, I'll
side to
twist
side.
it.
Mm-hmm.
But it just has a very, very nice, fine little
So now you're making the
black
body.
thread, and I'll go over it about 4 times back and forth,
Oh, you do that so well.
which will give a really nice, slim appearing body.
Yeah.
And then I'll just twist this gray thread and come around with it and make a very, very fine little rib.
Oh, that's a fine rib.
Tie it off. And that does look real well. It
Oh, yeah.
segments off very well.
Looks good.
Now I'm going to coat that whole thing right now before I go any further
Mm-hmm.
with head cement. I know that that's going to then bind everything right in
Bind everything
place.
down and give it a little gloss. And I like to do that.
Well, and it'll be a little bit on the tacky side by the time I'm ready to tie in that peacock
I wouldn't
curl
tell
head
you you
too.
had a tacky fly. I wouldn't do that.
You wouldn't tell me I had a
Wouldn't tell you
tacky
that.
fly.
No.
Okay. Now with this, as small as this is, I'm going to take just 2 peacock strands. And again, I'm going to do it the same way. I'm going to tie them in by the tip. You know, you could also tie this with some ostrich
Yep. Yep.
in the front.
And you could make it white ostrich.
Sure could. Look like gills.
Like gills on
Sure.
some of the midges, yeah. We'll do some talking about midges because, you know, a lot of people think of a midge as any tiny fly, but technically a midge refers to a 2-winged Diptera species of fly.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not just any old little dinky fly.
It is a specific species then.
Well, there are lots of species, there are a lot of midges,
Mm-hmm.
but they're a 2-winged family called Diptera. Yeah. And they come in a range of sizes. And they'll fool you. You'll go out to a lake and you'll see rising as far as you can see, fish coming up. You'll see all these little flies flying around, so people will look at the adult. They'll put on a dry fly to match it, and 1,000 casts later they're still trying to catch a fish because the fish are actually coming up taking the pupa
Just
in
under
the
the
surface film.
Right.
So when you see that situation, stop and realize these fish generally aren't taking the dry.
Mm-hmm.
And occasionally you'll see a fish jump clear out of the water to take the adult out of the air. And if you had a hover cast and could make your dry fly float, hover up there, but you
Yeah.
can't do that.
No.
But most of the time, and this is true in a stream, in a spring creek, they're
think
fishing
that-
on these pupa.
That fish also, when they're coming up to take just under the surface, their momentum will sometimes carry them out of the water and
or
back
you got to
down.
be careful if they're taking something in the film or just
Mm-hmm.
under, they might turn and it might be their tail waving goodbye to you. Yeah.
Well, there's
Well,
the
that's
little
our
midge.
fourth bonus, our bonus fly.
Simple little
And
fly.
so what we've done tonight is we've tied the Clark's
Clark's.
no Hackle Caddis,
Mm-hmm.
we've tied the Peacock Matuka, we've tied the 52 Buick, and our bonus fly, the Holtz Midge.
And I like that with that little gray rib on
Oh,
there.
that's
it
dandy.
looks really good.
Yeah, that's dandy. And so we'll figure out some new stuff for next week.
Mm-hmm.
Hope we have something that'll keep you coming back and looking for more. And we're certainly glad you tuned in to watch us. And you look in again on us next week and we'll try again. Thank you.
Dave and LeRoy have produced 2 100-minute videos covering basic trout fly selection and tying for the western and eastern United States. For basic western and eastern flies videos, call 1-800-883-0124 or visit our website at publictelevision.org. Cost of each video is $16.95 or get both for just $31.95 plus shipping and handling. You can also order the programs from this series. Each videotape includes 3 programs for just $22.95 plus shipping and handling. To order, call 1-800-883-0124 or visit us at our website publictelevision.org.
For more information on this series, please visit our website, publictelevision.org.